Hi, everybody. This is Eugene Popar, your host for the Hypnosis Masters Summit. And today we have with us the amazing Dr. Kate Beaven-Marks, who is a very energetic, enthusiastic, and experienced clinical hypnotist, hypnotherapy trainer, and also an international presenter and author. She has an extensive practical and theoretical knowledge of hypnosis, which is also, of course, supported by her extensive studies and research, including doctoral research on how hypnotherapy is taught, which is, this is something I really want to learn about more. So Kate, I'm going to ask you questions about this in this presentation. And she also has a broad range of practical applications, including medical and medical and surgical hospital environments. She's also teaching with HypnoTC and creating courses with hypnosiscourses.com, which she is a co-founder of, and she's teaching universities, colleges, and also in the NHS in the UK. She has an active role on the profession specific board of hypnotherapy with a complementary and natural healthcare council in UK, and is chair of the British Society of Clinical Hypnosis in the UK. So, whoo, that is Dr. Kate in the house. So, Dr. Kate, thank you so much for saying yes to our invitation, and I'm very, very excited to have you with us today.
You are welcome, and you've just now inspired me. I think I need to find some training on magical hypnosis. That sounds fun.
I know there are plenty of those out there, so I don't think you'll have too much of an issue with that. So today we are talking about how to promote and how to make the most of working online. And I know you have plenty of experience with this. So please tell us what are, if you were to think about making most of working online, I know some therapists, some people, they said, oh, I'm never going to work online because it's about the personal experience with the client. You have to be there to touch them, to feel them, to see them interact, and it's this magical real life interaction that makes a transformation. Now COVID comes upon us and says, screw that, upgrade or oblivion is upon you. So how do you, what can you tell us about how to make this switch easier and also, faster, I would say?
I would draw an analogy
Yes.
to cars. And this is one of the ways I explain it to some of the hypnotherapists I supervise. In that, say you've had this lovely car, this manual gearbox car, and you've been driving it for years, and it's so comfortable. You get in and the seat's just right and the mirrors are perfect, and it's just absolutely lovely, and you drive around and it's great. And then one day your car goes in for service and they say, oh, they do that sucking the teeth thing and say, oh, it's going to be weeks, we're waiting for parts. We'll lend you a courtesy car. And they lend you a beautiful car, but it's an automatic. Yeah. It's still a car, still drives, but it feels a bit weird. And I would say that it's just a different skill set. You already know how to do the driving, the stopping at stop signs, the looking for traffic, all of this, reversing around a corner, you'll be an expert at it. So instead of worrying about the bits that you don't know, just focus on the bits that you do know. You know how to drive a car, and in the same way, you know how to do hypnotherapy. All you're doing is you're adding into a skill set something extra. And once you start to become comfortable with it, just like driving that automatic car, it'll seem after a short amount of time as though you've been doing it for years.
So from your experience, which I know it's, very vast, I would say, have you seen a difference in results online versus in the office working with clients?
I think that I have noticed that there's an attitude shift in clients.
Okay.
Up until COVID, some of my international clients we would work together on Zoom or Skype, sometimes on the phone, although that's not my preferred medium. And they're quite happy because it saves them traveling to the UK and everything else. They can just sit at home and be comfortable. But other clients would be like, oh, no, I'll travel and see you. Even if they're traveling for 3 or 4 hours, they would make that journey. Yet when they weren't able to make that journey, a lot of clients had the mindset, well, I'll try it. And I think part of this was the fact that so many people had to work from home. They had to get used to using Zoom to do their work. They had to get used to using Zoom or Skype or FaceTime to see their loved ones. And because of this, it suddenly became comfortable. So clients were then comfortable with the concept of using Zoom or Skype and had a different attitude. And I think that attitude will stick because it's there now. Because so many people, from young children up to very senior elderly people, have got the hang of doing this. It's going to be something that I think is going to be a standard way of working now. I do think that we will return to in-person work as well. And sometimes that can be even better for clients, but sometimes online is even better for them as well. And I think we need to realize that some of this is going to be what works best for the client.
Yeah, and it's so funny because all the convincing in the world wouldn't be able for you to convince a client to do a Zoom call or a Skype call until COVID hit. And then, it's like everybody is being herded into doing online stuff. So what, I mean, there are so many questions, that I have in my head, but what should a therapist pay attention to when working online, as opposed to working in an office with a client? What are those requirements that the therapists need to keep in mind when working online?
I think there's quite a lot, and let's bear in mind that some hypnotherapists have been doing this for absolutely years, and it's totally possible to do that. I think one of the things that I would suggest that any hypnotherapist listening and watching to this think about is thinking of it as adding something in. So you're adding in a service. This includes things like mentioning it on your website that you offer this service and getting that mindset that you're adding in, you're not losing something. Because if you go into this with the mindset of, oh, well, it's a make, do, amend, it's a poor substitution. And I would be the first to admit, I love working with clients online. Although I have to say, sometimes I really do prefer working with them online. So it's mindset, getting that mindset there. Now, it isn't just mindset. Some of this is down to knowledge, skill, and experience. Knowing how to use, let's take Zoom for an example, because Zoom is very popular. Knowing how Zoom works, being confident navigating Zoom, and not just when everything goes perfectly well, but if something doesn't work. And I'm going to share a little bit of an example now. When we started this, I connected. My camera wasn't working. So that's odd. It was working when I checked it half an hour ago. It was working. I was like,
oh my God, Kate, where are you? Where are you?
So it's about knowing what you do in that circumstance. Yes, I've got a backup camera. Not my preferred one, but it's a backup. But also it's just thinking, well, hang on, what could have gone wrong? So I'll just restart my computer and I'll do this. And I sent Eugene a quick message saying, just doing this, I'll be a moment or two. Keeping calm and thinking what could go wrong foreseeably. Now, I haven't prepared for a meteor strike. I don't think it's scheduled, so we're fine. But being prepared for what could go wrong. If your microphone goes off, what could you do? Do you have a spare microphone? If your speakers go off, do you have spare speakers? If you've got a problem with your PC, a little while ago, Rory, my business partner, and I, we were teaching online, and this lady was very late starting class because her laptop had just gone into one of those long, laborious updates. So again, it's useful. Turn your computer on a good hour before you need it so that any updates are out of the way. If you can, and if you work online a lot, have a spare laptop or another way of working. All of this being prepared isn't really thinking about the negatives. It's preparing you for a positive outcome. You're going to be more confident if you know that you've got backup rather than if you're thinking, oh dear, what happens if something goes wrong? So mindset, being prepared is really important. Understanding how Zoom works. There's some really simple, fun things that you can do with Zoom. Keyboard shortcuts are amazing. And if you go into your accessibility settings on Zoom, and I think you click on your profile picture and then click settings, you can get a list of all of your keyboard shortcuts. That means things like Alt and A is a toggle switch for your audio. Alt and V is a toggle switch for your video. So it's simple stuff like that. Not only does it make your life easier, but you can share these with your client. Your client then gets an added perception that you're an expert in this field. So they're going to have even more confidence with you.
So when you're working with clients online, do you like give them I don't know, an email or a video, or explain to them, hey, here's what you need to know when we're gonna, meet up. So here's what you need to do to, properly make sure that everything works. Are you doing that, or do you think that's advisable?
I go one step further because I'm a little bit sneaky as a hypnotherapist. I like to do everything I possibly can to optimize rapport, because I know, or I believe, that good rapport with my client gets better outcomes for both of us. So that initial chat I like to do on Zoom. And that gives me an opportunity not only to check that the client has the relevant skills, but to do a little bit of quick information. This is how you navigate. This is what will happen. Now, if we're going to record the session, you'll notice it up there on the screen, that red button with the word recording. If you need to pause for a moment, just let me know. If you want to ask a question, but this is where the chat button is. All sorts of different things. And just navigating that helps somebody feel really comfortable. If they're already comfortable with Zoom, then I'll know that as well. So I like to have that initial check with them. And a few times I found that somebody has had absolutely dire lighting and I can't see their face enough. Now that could have been a problem in a hypnotherapy session, but in a preliminary session, it means I can just say, could you get a little desk lamp, pop it beside you, and let's try that now. And
which is exactly what we did before we started this session, where I was telling you, look into the camera, scoot over to the left, go back a little bit, look nice, set everything up for the session. And of course, this would, for recording purposes, of course, but with a client, this reminds me, I have to tell you this was mind-blowing for me, but it appears that a lot of people are doing this. So it has nothing to do with what we are speaking so far about right now, but just by going through this, I made a connection in my brain. So in one of my hypnosis courses, I had a dentist, a dental doctor.
Mm-hmm.
So she was having clients who could not take the anesthetic. They were having reactions to that, right? So this was crazy. I couldn't believe my mind when my ears when I heard it. But she said, here's what I tell them. I say to them, you're gonna be here in the chair. If there's gonna be any discomfort, just lift your left foot. And if you do that, the pain goes away. You got it? And they go, yes. All right, let's get to work. And then every now and then she would see the left foot going up and then going down, and she would continue working. And it's like, and she said, people, extractions, root canal, work done, and they would just do that, and they would just go through the process. So now, how did I connect that with this? Well, you can tell the client, like Milton Erickson was saying, when he was bringing somebody up to work with them, he would say to them, come over, please, and sit in the trance chair, right? So something like that, you can play with this. Like, if you go a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, the trance will be going deeper or whatever, you can think of so many things.
Absolutely. And you can even do that on here, because at the moment I'm sitting fairly central, but you could say to somebody, what I'd like you to do is just turn ever so slightly to an angle. Now, this is actually quite mirroring of how you might be in the therapy room anyway. If you sit at a 10-2 position, yeah, you would be side on. However, for the therapist, you get a lot more information with me sitting at this angle than if I'm sitting here. You see how I'm breathing, you see more, you'll see if I'm fidgeting with my feet, you'll notice more of a difference. So even that, nice. Are you ready to go into hypnosis? Go into the hypnosis position. You'll find yourself already starting to relax deeply. Yeah. And you can just use that as a trigger.
For sure. I actually worked with a client once, and I told her to stand up and, take a few steps back, forward, change her body position. We're working with not necessarily hypnosis, but we're doing therapy, right? So I said to her, stand up, go 2 feet backward, and do whatever, something. And it was part of the whole session. She was super involved with it, so super engaged. So yeah, that worked out. But I like this trick with turn around, because if you turn around to your left, not to your right, it's like you're making even more important, like it would matter which way you turn it.
Yes, it is. It's one of those things that it just adds to the whole, not necessarily the mystique, but the whole experience of the hypnotherapy session.
So go ahead, please.
The more you give somebody an experience, the more that they can connect to it, and then the more they're going to get out of it.
Well, you see, this is so important what you just said right now, because there are other practitioners, specialists, therapists, hypnotherapists, whatever you want to call them, who they go the other way around. They say, let's demystify hypnosis and treat it as a, just like any other, psychotherapeutic intervention, where there is no magic in it. It's just practical and efficient. And, you basically, vote for the other perspective, like, throw magic into it. And so I'm guessing that's what you use also when you work with clients, right? Convincers and stuff like that.
I use convincers and all sorts of different things with all of my clients. My aim is to give my client a really good experience. And I totally understand. I think it was Meyerson that talks about the demystification of hypnosis. But one of the important things is to only get rid of the myths that aren't helpful. So rather than with my clients, I don't give them a lecture on what hypnosis is. I ask them what their expectations are, and then I will dispel any unhelpful myths, and I will work with the myths that are helpful in them achieving their goals. Because why would I want to tell a client, well, you're wrong. No, it isn't that. I had a lovely elderly guy referred to me a few years ago. Oh, he was absolutely lovely. He was so eager, so keen for this hypnotherapy session. It was a pain management session, and he was convinced that hypnotherapy was going to work. And he was a little bit of the mystical side, but he'd also been told, I think by his GP, about some of the research. So he knew both sides of it. And then I said to him, how do you expect to go into hypnosis? And that's one of my go-tos, because then I find out, do they want quick? Do they want slow? I'm happy to work with whatever they're expecting. We said, well, you're going to wave your watch, aren't you? I'm thinking, right, okay. So luckily,
do you have any watches they can wave?
I always wear a necklace for hypnosis. Notice the swirly bit. So I said, well, us girls, we don't carry the fob watches. They're really for the guys. But I have something special. I have a hypnotic spiral. Now, this is even more powerful than the watch. So I hope you're prepared to go into hypnosis really quickly and really deeply. Okay, are you ready?
Hypnoland.
Yeah. And I just took my necklace off, used it for eye fixation. And he went absolutely through the floor. He has some really good outcomes. He learned some fabulous pain management techniques. And he sort of messaged me, I think it was by email, a few weeks later saying, oh, that session was amazing. He said, but actually, even better was the fact that I can do it for myself. And
yeah,
he was so proud of the fact that he could manage his pain now. But it's about, you know, if I just said to him, no, hypnosis isn't like that. Hypnosis is like this. I think it would have spoiled some of his expectation. And I know I'm very pro research, absolutely, considering all my masters and doctorates and stuff. But clients expect some aspect of magic. And yes, you can dispel that, but it's almost like telling a child how a magic trick works. Is there any benefit in doing it?
Yeah.
Because if their belief works for them and will fit in with how you're working, then you may get a better outcome by going with them.
Yeah, totally. And I you know, this was kind of like my next question. What is more important, especially now with working online? What is more important, the therapist's belief or the client's beliefs?
For me, it's the client's beliefs. Because I may not always agree with a client's goals. I may not always agree with the client's mindset. But that isn't, I'm not living that client's life. As long as the client believes that they can have an effective session towards their goals, towards alleviating their symptoms or whatever it is that they're working on, then that's what's important. And to some extent, if as a therapist you absolutely don't believe that you can work effectively online, then don't. There are alternatives. You could do a really good intake online, consultation online, and record your client in MP3. So there are alternatives. If you absolutely cannot change your mindset, another thing that you could do is go and have a hypnotherapy session with a colleague and just experience it for yourself. Notice for yourself whether you went into hypnosis, whether you were able to connect. Because as one of the things I explain to prospective clients, once you have your eyes shut, is there really a difference with whether the voice is coming from a speaker on your desk or a speaker 6 feet away from you in a consulting room? And really, most clients get a better auditory experience when they're online. They're either wearing headphones like yours, or they've got really lovely speakers. They've been able to adjust it so that it's just right for those. And this is really important for clients who are hard of hearing. And in fact, for some clients who are hard of hearing, online is a significantly better experience for them.
Actually, I know I was speaking with some of my friends in the world of hypnosis, and this guy, he has when he was seeing clients in his office, the clients would come in, and even though they were sitting next to each other, he would give clients headphones, like noise canceling headphones, and he would speak in a microphone so that the client can hear his voice inside of his head. So this was like really happening right there and like 2 feet away from each other, but he would still give them, headphones to make it even more, intimate, if you will, as a experience of transformation.
It can be a very immersive experience wearing headphones.
Yeah, immersive. That's what I was going for. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, as I keep saying, that you're adding in a skill set. This is really useful. You're going to find ways of working with people that you may never have tried before. But is that really anything new? Because most hypnotherapists will engage in professional development. So just think of this as a new protocol or a new technique or a new model. You're just learning something new.
Absolutely. So I want to, circle back a little bit to, clients' beliefs versus therapist beliefs. How do you deal with clients' beliefs when they come and they expect hypnosis to be a certain way, which is way, very far away from what it actually is? How do you deal with that? And I had clients who came to me and when I told them, well, it's not really what you think it is, you know what their reply was? Well, you don't know nothing. It's like, you don't know what real hypnosis is. You're just a charlatan because you don't know what real hypnosis is. And of course, real hypnosis is what they thought it was. So how do you deal with that? Have you ever been accused that you don't know what real hypnosis is because you don't live up to their expectations?
Oh, bless. Yes, I have more than once. But as my friends will say, I can argue for England. And luckily, I can quote and cite research till the cows come home, until their eyes glaze over, which is a form of trance. So it works fine. I think what it is about actively listening and then pulling apart the strands of their perspective and giving an alternative. And if you want to keep them as a client, and this is where the skill comes in, it's about addressing them whilst not addressing their ego. So keeping it factual, but saying,
say that again, please. Say that again.
So it's about addressing the strands, the information, without attacking their ego.
That was right into my heart. That was so beautiful.
Because it keeps your rapport then. One of the things I like to say to clients with some of this is like, absolutely. And if this was a movie, if there was a film crew over there and there was a lovely sound guy over there with one of those big fluffy microphones, that would work. However, what works in the movies isn't going to give you the best outcome. And I'm professionally obliged, I'm morally obliged to do my best for you, not for what's done in movies, but for what's right for you here today. And some of the approaches that you may have heard about are a little bit outdated. And research shows us that these approaches work better. And I'm sure you want the approaches that work best because this is your time, your money, your resources. So let's work together to get you the best possible outcome today. And just move them.
All right. I'm going to take this part and, really make it nice, print it out and, send out to everybody. So, and actually this goes back to another question I have. Some therapists, they record their speech, their introduction or the, what do they call it now? I mean, different places, they call it different ways, like, the pre-talk. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I could, like in different professions, they call pre-talk different ways. So that's why I was going for it. So do you use that? Do you do that for working online? Like saying, do you do that?
Yeah, some people call it psychoeducation, which is a phrase I'm not awfully fond of. client information. Yes, psychoeducation's like, do I want to be educated as a psycho? Probably not. But to come back to your actual point, do I do a video or do I do a recording? I don't. However, I do know of some of our graduates and some colleagues who have a general information video that they have perhaps on YouTube that they link to. And this is very positive, very general. It's dispelling myths in a positive way rather than giving people a list of what hypnosis isn't. Because if you give people a list of what hypnosis isn't, you might be introducing myths they hadn't even thought of yet. So keeping it very positive. What you can do if you have that is then at that initial consultation point, or even have a link on your website and say to prospective clients, have a look at this. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a chat about that when we meet up. And it can be good to give them a very general starting point. But for me, that intake, that pre-talk is a two-way discussion. So I'm not really fond of just lecturing to the client. I want to find out what they know, what they expect, so that I can frame what I'm going to do with them in a way that meets their reality. One of my mentors many years ago said that really when you're working in hypnotherapy, you have one foot in their world and one foot in yours. Nice. And that's what I'm aiming for. I'm aiming to give them information in a way that they understand. I do know I was supervising a lovely, absolutely lovely lady a few weeks ago, and she has a very long script that goes into neurotransmitter function, hemispheric activity, the role of the prefrontal cortex. And I was thinking, if I heard that in a first session, I'd be really quite worried, because it's like, oh, she's talking about things that I might not know about. And it could really worry some clients. It's good to know about the action of hypnosis and the influence on the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex in case you're asked. And I have been. But
to see if you really know your art, your skill, right?
I was working with somebody in critical care. I do some work in a hospital. And unlike most patients in critical care, this lady was actually awake. And she had some concerns about going into hypnosis. And it turned out that she was a cognitive neuroscientist. So she's like, oh, and we had a lovely discussion. And fortunately, one of the papers I cited to her, because she was asking about research, she knew the author.
Nice.
And it was just that point. She was like, oh, well, you know, if so-and-so says it's okay, that's let's have a go.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. So have you ever, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so to sum up, really, it can be good to have a general initial video, and that sort of lays the groundwork. But I do really like a good two-way discussion for pre-talk.
For sure. And what about, because we're talking about, how to be successful on working online. Have you ever actually have done group sessions online?
I have. Yes.
And
this is where I would say it's personal preference. I like to know what's going on. I really hate it where people in a group mute their video. I want to see what they're doing. So I regularly do group sessions for one of the London teaching hospitals for staff. And I've been doing that for a while. And so that they get some self-care time, they get some hypnosis sessions. And it's so hard if you can't see them.
Yeah.
And if these were my own groups, then I would say you need to leave your video on. However, they're not. So if you have the opportunity to organize groups, then absolutely, I would suggest keep the video on. I do say get everybody to mute their audio, although if you've set the Zoom session up, you can mute their audio. I had to do that, yesterday. I was working with a group of medics, and this lady, her children, she was clearly working from home, her children were rather loud, and I could start to hear it. So I just muted her audio halfway through the hypnosis session. But again, this is about therapists knowing how the controls work and that you can mute audio. Now, I had already manipulated distractions so that any sounds around them would just help them focus more on my voice. So there's things that you can do. One of the things that is a challenge with groups, and I'm quite careful in how I work, it's probably my very early health and safety and risk management background that's coming through this, is I don't work on highly contentious issues with groups. One of the key things that you need to watch for is obviously disconnections, and you can set up for that. If your internet drops and you don't hear me for a minute, open your eyes, you'll be fully alert, and just re-establish the connection. And then watch, because they might come into your waiting room if you're on Zoom. The other thing that you can watch for is if somebody opens their eyes, and all you need to do is to just do that. Or even mouth. If they're looking at you, and they will. The tricky thing is abreactions. Now, you are just as likely to get an abreaction in a group in person as you might in a group online. If you're careful working and you're using similar material, then what you'll find is that you can use the same abreaction process that you would normally do. Remembering, generally, it's good practice to not touch your clients during an abreaction. So being online is even better for that, because you can't reach through the screen and touch them. But all you'll do is you'll use the same abreaction protocol for everybody. And generally, if somebody is starting to abreact, you can just allow that scene to fade, focus on your breathing, focus on my voice as you just allow that scene to fade. And rather than picking on one person, use the process for the whole group and then move on accordingly. It might be that you re-alert everybody, and then depending on what you're doing, you might put everybody into perhaps a breakout room to have a discussion about their experience, not put the person who abreacted into the breakout room and have a quick chat with them. If you're working with groups a lot, you might have a colleague sit in on your group work, have a breakout room set up already, and if somebody does abreact, then wake the group up, move the abreacting person, once they've stabilized, move them to the other room, move your colleague to the other room, let them deal with it, and you just re-induce all the rest of the group. So there are ways of working, but it's about thinking about what could happen and what can I do to mitigate that.
Okay, I have to tell you this. Recently, I had an online course on self-hypnosis. So we were doing a session, a group session, and I muted everyone, but I also muted my own sound on my computer, right? So then we start doing the session. And it wasn't even long. It was like, I don't know, a 10-minute session, right? And then of course, I was trancing out while I was doing the session. So I didn't even pay attention to anything. My sound was off. I didn't look at the chat. And then when I opened my eyes and I finished the trance and I looked, and there was this comment: whoever is snoring, stop snoring. Oh my God. I was just laughing. I had tears in my eyes. Oh my God. And you know, the funny thing, I spoke to that lady on the phone today. She said, I was the one who was saying, stop snoring, because there was this lady there was a lady actually who was snoring. I don't know. And I told them, don't worry, I'm gonna take this out in the post-production when I'm gonna edit the video recording. So you won't have to do this. But it was so funny. I mean, it was just hilarious. And I did mute them, but when they come in during the session, and I was not pressing the admit. I had somebody who was doing that. And so she didn't mute them. And yeah, it was chaos. It was just hilarious. Absolutely.
You can set up your Zoom session so that people are muted on entry.
I did, and then they unmute themselves. You can also mute them to come in with the camera closed, so you can also do that. But then they want to see each other, and they want to see who else is there, and so on and so forth. But it was just hilarious. It's just like, I mean, I cracked up laughing. It was too much.
People can snore in hypnosis, though. They don't have to be asleep.
Yeah, I do that sometimes. It's like if I let my head back, I start doing this. Is the laryngeus that is getting very relaxed.
Yeah.
That was good. So coming back to working online, you also do classes online, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
How have you found this for yourself? And would you advise, there are many people who are watching this, and they either are already doing courses or they are thinking of doing courses, and now more than ever, they are doing them online. So what tips would you give, present trainers or future trainers who would, want to start teaching? What advice would you do them for online courses?
We teach a hypnotherapy certification course, and it's been specifically written to be taught online. So we have, videos for people to watch in advance. We have course manuals, and then we have a live online session. And I think that live online bit is really important, because I think people need to engage in a learning community, to have discussions, to interact, and really importantly, to practice with supervised feedback. Because sometimes you can watch a video and you can think you're doing it right or a good way, but you might not be. The same as it's probably really difficult to learn how to drive a car just by watching YouTube. So having this live online opportunity, this practice, Zoom is amazing for this because it has breakout rooms. And for trainers, trainers can mute their video, they can mute their audio, and they can pop into each of those breakout rooms and have a peek and see what people are doing. And just to get an idea of how they're getting on. So for online training, some things, especially for CPD courses, ongoing development, you can pre-record it. You can have a really good manual, and people are used to learning additional stuff. But for people who are learning at practitioner level, their first training, I think it's really important to get lots and lots of practice. And this means not just practice within the course, but maybe going that extra mile and practicing outside of a course. Now, one of the things that I've noticed, which I think is fascinating, I love to sort of observe how people learn. Whilst we encourage our in-person students to practice, if somebody isn't living nearby, they tend not to, and they'll just practice with friends and family. Whereas for our live online students, because they're already used to this medium of being online, they're so much more comfortable, even right at the start of the course, connecting up, getting together and having practice sessions and having discussions and really engaging. So sometimes if you're planning to do a lot of work online anyway, a live online type course is a really good way of learning because you're using the medium that you're going to be working in.
Yeah. So, is there a difference between your, let's say, if you were teaching a normal hypnosis course, which probably was, I don't know, a week, 2 weeks, whatever long, however long it was, and now you switched to doing that online? Did you, are you doing the exact same things, yes, exact same methods, techniques, or because many professionals, they say, okay, I'm going to do an online course on hypnosis. Should I do the exact same thing? Should I charge the same amount of money for the online versus the live course? What are the differentiators?
Yeah, ours isn't. Ours is specifically written to be taught online, because my doctorate's in, I studied hypnosis teaching and learning, so I'm very keen on formulating a teaching strategy that works for the medium in which you teach. And our live online course, I think, is 275 study hours. Our in-person is 450 study hours. It's 10 weekends over 10 months, as opposed to 8 modules over 16 weeks. Yeah. So there are some things that I prefer to teach in person, and there are some things that will work just as well online or in person. So I've looked at what we teach, and I've picked out the aspects that will work equally well online. I'm not going to teach something that won't stand on its own 2 feet online. If people want, I mean, rapid inductions is
that's one thing that's one of the things I was also considering. How do you teach rapid inductions online?
Well, now many people watch this will know my business partner Rory Zed is a rapid induction guru. He loves rapid inductions. He can live, eat and breathe them all day, every day. And we both agree that the shock rapid inductions, they're not really going to translate well to online environments, although myself and a couple of friends have been experimenting, but it's still at the experimental level.
Yes.
But a lot of the rapids will work. Absolutely. You know, the quick eye fixations, the magnetic hands, the magnetic fingers, all of that will work. It's only the physical ones that you're not going to be able to reach through the screen and manipulate part of their body.
However, if you start getting one of those meshes for virtual reality, then even that could work.
Well, it's interesting. One of my friends who's into robotics said, "But you could program a robot to do the shock." Oh. If you're creative, there are ways around it. I have some clients who I only ever see online, different parts of the world. Sometimes I start seeing them in the UK, then, lives change, they move. One lady has the most amazing house in Cape Cod, and why would you want to be in England in the winter when you can be in an amazing place like that?
Yeah.
And she absolutely loves rapid inductions, absolutely loves them. And sometimes I'll do a short hypnosis session just so I can re-alert her and do another rapid induction, and she's so happy. Best bit of the session for her.
Super.
And you can do them online. Some of this is about being flexible. It's about thinking through what the process is, what you want to achieve, what you need to do, what they need to do. And also going back perhaps to your initial training and thinking about, what do I need to tell them I'm going to do? And what do I need to tell them that they are going to do? And sometimes we might forget that. And it's one of those fundamental things of, in this process, I'm going to do this and you're going to do that. And it's setting them up for a good outcome.
Yeah. Wonderful. Kate, thank you so much. This has been, absolute pleasure to connect with you and learn from you and your experience with working online. Where can people find you? Where can people get in touch with you?
All over the place. um, You're one of the few people that pronounce my name right. So thank you very much for that. Gold star.
Hey.
Easiest way is on either of our websites. So either hypnosis-courses.com or hypnotc.com. Or if you want to find my own website, it's drkatehypno.com. So I'm around a lot. Feel free to
Yeah,
message.
you're online, right?
I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn. There's only one of me with my name. I keep Googling it and it's only me. So you will find me.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. And it's been a great pleasure to have you in our summit. Thank you so much.
Oh, you are more than welcome. The time has flown by.
Absolutely. So everybody, what you have to do right now, you take your notebook, you write down with pen to paper, you write down the most important idea you got from this presentation, write it down. And if you want to, of course, it'll be wonderful if you want to share that with us in the Facebook group, on WhatsApp, Telegram, whatever, in the email. So write down the most important idea, share it if you will, don't if you don't want to. And then take a quick break and we'll see you in the next presentation and I'll see you soon.